conservatives liked freedom. You know, but apparently if you... if you want to wear pajamas, while bodyguards shooed male celebrities away from his paid harem. So what, was he procuring them or shooing them away?
Well, there were stages. There was there were the mid-half parties, and then there were late half who didn't.
What's your sex life like? Because I just don't understand people who are so mad at people who live differently. Walk me through how.
I wouldn't be mad at Hef if he lived differently. You were going to defend my sex life.
I was going to say, if anything, I bet it's consensual, which is all it needs to be.
And Hugh Hefner's was not?
There was congressional testimony, I believe, from people who are from former playmates who talked about things like drugging them and forcing them into acts. So,
I don't.
From the playmates themselves, they testified at the Meese Commission. Remember that?
I remember the Meese Commission.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
That's what I watched late at night.
I mean, you were
reruns of the Meese Commission.
Yeah. And this is like,
but look, we can. I mean, we should have this out, right?
Yeah,
I don't have a problem. You know, Hugh Hefner's private life was Hugh Hefner's private life, but Hugh Hefner was a public man, right?
But
you could watch his entire, the last 5 or 10 years of his life in a reality TV show, The Girls Next Door, and his whole thing was, I'm Hugh Hefner. I'm selling my life as a model for young men the country over, and I think it's totally reasonable after a life lived 50 years in the public eye, hugely successful magazine, he's a rich man, to look at that arc and say, where did the mainstreaming of pornography end up? And it ended up somewhere kind of gross and squalid, don't you think?
First of all, he was
just a little squalid.
Yeah, but why does he get blamed for that? That's like blaming nuclear weapons on the inventor of the musket. I mean, he hated that. Do you know what Playboy looked like? I mean, it was not really pornographic.
In the 50s, yeah. No, I mean, Hef started out, sure. The original Playboy looks totally tame.
It's tame now. It's girls in short shorts at a car wash.
Now they've right. But the Hefner credo was the pursuit of sex is, if not the most, close to the most important thing in human life, and all censorship has to follow it.
And if I may say, it's the pursuit of sex by men that's the most important thing in life, and that's the problem I have with Hugh Hefner.
Actually,
if it was about like the equal pursuit of sex by everyone, and it was all consensual.
It was, people don't think.
I think Anna needed to write this article personally.
People don't remember that.
It's like the one thing he and I agree on, so we're kind of like throwing it out.
1950. But wait a second. In 1953, when this magazine started, I mean, women had no choices. They were in the home. They didn't work generally. They sometimes went from their father's house to their husband's house. That's where they were. I thought feminism was all... Wait a second. I thought feminism was all about choice.
But Hef's early complaint was
nobody forced you to be anybody to be a playmate.
Well, wasn't Hef's early complaint that this 50s culture didn't give him enough choice, right? I mean, that he got married and he didn't like his wife anymore and so on, and so he moved on to a world of perpetual adolescence.
And also the stop between, if you make the stop between living with your parents and living with your husband to, like, you can take your clothes off for me, that's not much of a choice either.
Yeah, but then don't buy the magazine. Why do you hate people who don't live the way you live? People have different libido levels.
I don't hate people who don't live the way I live.
This is pretty hateful.
I'm not. Look, again, Bill.
That's a hateful.
If you want to take your friend seriously, as you should, as an important figure in American history, as someone who unleashed a revolution in how we think about pornography and everything else, you have to look at where that revolution ultimately took us, because Hef won, right? Like the idea of a world where, it's a conservative culture and there's a pornographic magazine behind a paper bag in the store and, people look at it and so on. But that's not the world that Hef built. Hef built a world of, I mean, you know what pornography is like now, right?
Now, again, that's not what he was doing. And also the way you gloss over it, you say porn and everything else. The world of 1953 was a real iceberg in this country, very repressed. And because Playboy was kind of the tip of the spear of saying, look, there can be an alternative way to live.
It was the tip.
It really was.
It was just the tip. Is that what you're saying?
It really was for gay rights, for civil rights. I mean, he was ahead of all these issues, and you just refused to...
what is he actually famous for, right? I mean, yeah, you know, Hefner was on the right side of a certain number of causes, and I would give him credit for that.
Well,
but he's not remembered as a civil rights pioneer. He's remembered because he was America's first really successful pornographer.
Weinstein was on the right side of a couple of causes. I mean, that didn't...
Right.
Well, I don't think we want to give him any credit for that.
Marches.
We have a different definition of pornography. See, if I just see a woman naked as God made her, to me...
I'm getting to you.
To me...
Finally.
To me, that's not pornography. I want to talk about a subject that is not in the news this week, which is guns. Because you can never talk about guns when it is in the news.
Yeah.
You know, in those rare weeks when we're not having a mass shooting, this is the time. We're in between shootings. Let's talk about it now.
Yeah.
Okay, because you got into a little trouble when you were on NRA TV, and you said it was that walkout day when the Parkland kids were having a demonstration all over the country. Kids walked out of school. And you told your kids, we're a gun-owning family. Don't walk out of that school.
We're not doing that.
And I said the next week, that's perfectly your right to say it. And this... Okay, I'm not going to start on the PC nonsense of not being able to speak your mind and diversity of thought, but we should have diversity of thought. And I think liberals are going to have to come to terms with the fact that there's a racial component to this debate.
Oh, yeah.
Please, your cue.
Amir Loggins and Christopher Petrella wrote about, a week after my time on the Whipping Post, about African-American and gun ownership. They wrote a article in the Washington Post that said killer might be right. And it specifically highlighted over the last 300 or 400 years how gun laws were not only used against African Americans and indigenous populations, but created to control them. Going back to the 1600s, if you had a gunsmith store, you were any type of metalsmith, you could not work legally on an Indian's gun. Fast forward, they had slave patrols. Well, no, not slave patrols, because slavery was over. They had literally, they deputized all white citizens in Florida to be able to go into black households and take guns out arbitrarily, which lends itself to the to the guy, I forgot his name, who was over the Department of Justice, saying that Anglo-American history was law enforcement. So pretty much if I'm a white man in America, you're telling me that by owning a gun, I am a part of law enforcement. What happens because of that? You kill black children because because their music is loud. What happens when you're in that indulgent? You track a black boy behind a building, you engage him in a fight, you begin to lose, you murder him, and then you are let off the hook because of standing your ground. At the same time, a black woman named Sawatu Salama Ra is in Detroit. She is in an argument, as people get in all the time in Detroit and Atlanta and towns, other places where cars and people are involved. She feels as though she's threatened. She's about to be hit by a car. Car appears about to ram her. She pulls an unloaded pistol, makes a threat, same way they tell you to do this. If you see a bear coming, just make whatever is threat and scared of you. She's now in jail for 2 years while 7 months pregnant. She didn't engage. They were engaging one another. She didn't track a child. She didn't murder that child. She's not free. So what I was saying on NRA TV and any other TV that would have heard me is that for African Americans to align themselves with the gun law lobby, stop and have a conversation with your allies and say this: these laws are going to affect us worst, and they're going to affect us first. If you put more police in school, you're going to see more African-American children engaged by police in a violent manner. The same way a little girl was slammed out of her desk. The same way a little girl was slammed at a pool party. And I'm simply saying to our allies, wait and let's talk about it, because laws that are introduced are going to affect my community worse than first. And I'd be a fool as a black person.
Isn't it the case that the police... It's a matter of self-reliance. Police don't always show up.
Absolutely. They're not going to.
In the poorer neighborhoods.
They're not going to show up in poor neighborhoods. They're not going to show up in rural neighborhoods because we underfund our police forces. They lack the training they properly need, and we don't have the type of officers we need in the community.
I couldn't agree with you more in terms of equal rights. I mean, let's face it, this is not a country that has distinguished itself with regard to equal rights on racial basis. But there's a difference between that point, I think, and maintaining that we have to get rid of assault weapons. We've got to have universal background checks.
Yep.
I mean, that's absolutely critical.
when you say that's absolutely...
Why is that critical?
Yeah, why is that?
Why is that critical? Because see, one of the problems that gun people have with liberals talking about guns is that liberals don't know what they're talking about when they're talking about guns.
At all.
I'm not a gun expert. I don't like guns. I've said many times I have a gun because self-reliance. Okay, and the police might not get there, yada, yada, yada. But I mean, there was, I think, only 400 deaths from all types of rifles last year.
Absolutely.
I don't know if that is the key issue. It's a big applause break for liberals when you say assault weapons. But you know, the Virginia Tech shooting was the biggest one ever,
handgun.
I think, and that was a handgun.
And you're saying to a population of people, and I know you will understand me on this, you're saying to a population of people, this guy's a tyrant, you're living under the tyrannical times, and you're comparing him to Adolf Hitler. When you do that to my community, I must take it seriously. I must take it seriously because not only am I seeing gun violence around crime and poverty in my community, I'm seeing officers of the state murder my children, murder my women. So when we start to say tyranny could never happen, if you're African American, tyranny is happening now. Not happening. Not potentially happening. We are being murdered at a higher rate and engaged by agents of the state. And when we say assault weapons, we ignore the fact that the Second Amendment says in case of tyranny. If a soldier or a cop can own a version of an AR-15, I'm not comfortable in a country where I'm being asked to de-arm and they are not.
Well, here's what, let me just say.
Let me just say, as not an African American,
house jokes.
I've been saying for a long time that Donald Trump is bringing fascism to this country. Madeleine Albright wrote an op-ed in the New York Times a few weeks ago saying the same thing. It said fascism is coming. Okay, you know, the shoe's on the other foot now. If you really believe that Donald Trump is an authoritarian leader capable of using force to suppress the opposition, I wonder if liberals are going to be rethinking their feelings about guns a little bit.
Well,
my next guest is one of the biggest names in hip-hop, a civic leader, and an activist. Please welcome Killer Mike. Killer Mike, thanks for being here.
Thank you. My wife put me on a diet. I lost 4 pounds, and now I can't keep my pants up.
Thank you. Thank you for wearing your formal sweats for us tonight.
Actually, these are formal. This is my PTA meeting outfit. This is
really? When you have to go talk?
Yeah, exactly. When I got to go talk around other parents and you don't want to dress like a, you know, a rapper. You put on a sweatsuit that has a cardigan sweater.
Well,
thank you, Ralph Lauren.
When you go meet, like, your kids in elementary school?
Yeah.
Do the teachers go, now, Killer Mike, I want to talk to you
Well,
about
yeah. Well, they say that after we discuss why my child is fighting.
Could it have anything to do with your name, Killer Mike?
It's the girls that are fighting, though. The boys are pretty good. Yeah, hello,
girls
Anaya.
can fight?
Yeah.
It's a whole new world.
Yeah.
Why Killer Mike?
Well, I didn't name myself, so I want to say it wasn't like some kid was standing in a mirror and decided he looked like a killer. I actually would have been like Bugatti Mike or Ferrari Mike.
Oh, okay.
But I rapped against a kid as a kid, and I rapped against him really well, and then 7, 8 other guys, and the guy stood on a desk much like this and said, that kid's a killer. And after that, no one ever called me skunk again in my life. It was just killer.
Killer?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, your original name is Michael Render.
Michael
right?
Render is
That's
my
a
name.
good name, too. Mike Render.
Yeah,
it's
my
like you're
father's
tearing
name.
the mic apart.
Yeah. And my daughter's name is also Michael Render.
Your daughter's name is Michael?
My youngest daughter is Michael.
That's a pretty name for a girl.
I think so.
Yeah.
She got to stop fighting, though.
Okay, we all have to stop fighting.
Yeah.
We all have to stop fighting.
concur.
You're, as I said, you're a civic leader. You're socially active.
I am.
A hip hop artist.
I own barbershops.
You do own barbershops.
I'm a part of a very good rap group called Run the Jewels. We're working on part 3 right now.
Yeah. You guys just got. It was just announced you guys are going to be included in Coachella this year, right?
Back to back, like a Drake record.
That's fantastic.
We are back.
Now, this year, if I can speak for all white people. I
prefer you speaking for all white people.
Okay, you speak for all black people, okay?
Today I do.
You do, okay. This year, tragically, a lot of people in the white community have found out about the life of African Americans in Ferguson and Baltimore, North Charleston, other places around the United States. Do you think that the awareness that has risen to these tragedies has changed anything, at least in our national dialogue?
All right, white people who are watching, Google Jane Elliott.
For each of the 26 letters, and so I've gotten quite a few submissions. I put them together in a document, which I'll read you some of the entries in a moment. It's missing a few letters. I could wait, till the end of the day to hopefully have the full alphabet. But I thought, in any case, we might as well just move along with the. Hopefully have the full alphabet, but I thought, in any case, first I'll begin by sharing some of my own. We might as well just posted earlier today on social media. So these are all mine. The concomitant categorization of the cannibalistic classification of the other is a cantankerous collage of the coloring of white America. Sounds pretty reasonable. Then I've got the necrophilic nexus of narcolepsy is a nebulous nemesis of whiteness. The nobility of blackness nullifies the nothingness of white man. And then finally, the principality of the plenitude of platitudes is the panoply of poised power of blackness against polluted whiteness. Racist Dyson could never hope to create such random gibberish. And by the way, for those of you who still haven't figured it out, the last Sad Truth 653, was satirical. It pains me to have to yet repeat it again. In any case, here are some entries. Letter A, Brother Peterson is an adroit but acrimonious archetype of auspicious whiteness with anachronistic ideas that run counter to good faith efforts to ameliorate real suffering among those who reify the amorphous collective abstraction known as blackness. Well played. As I have another A entry, an abominably articulate African American, albeit not of approbated Ephraisian descent, attempts to address and abase with alliteration that which he abhors, while amalgamating the affirmative affiliates of all Lance Armstrong-looking motherfuckers and all that is, quote, white, and notwithstanding his inability to actually ameliorate his attack on the very architecture of reason via the addition of the affusion of a word salad amounting to an overactivation of his amygdala and the accumulation of aneurysms. Well done, well done. If you could make me crack up, you're doing a good job. B, the bombastic brashness of bamboozling, bereft, Bosronesque white people by beholding the beatific Benthamian blackness of people of color proves the brilliance of Michael Racebait Dyson. C, letter C, the callousness of cruel and contrarian Caucasians who dare counteract the creation of politically correct safe spaces creates a most calamitous situation for the black community. I'll accept Caucasian instead of whiteness. Well done. This next one, not sure it's a grammatically correct sentence, but let's go with it. Contra-racial, colonialist, color-whistling, chronoculturally compartmentalizes crackdowning on the churchified blackness, codified capriciously in covert, cyclo-exclusionary, cracker-appropriated Cajun whiteness. I love my Godfellas. D, the direct dilemma of darkness read blackness calls for a defiant destruction and disillusioning of the depraved devil known as whiteness. I can't stay away from speaking to you guys. I'm supposed to be just spending time with my family, which I have. But then I found out that the bridge builder, Michael Eric Dyson, whom I've weighed in against, if you go back and do a search using his Twitter portal or Twitter handle and mine, you'll find some tweets where I went after the bridge builder. And now I regrettably found out that he had a debate with Jordan Peterson and Stephen Fry and some other lady I didn't check yet. I haven't watched the debate yet, and maybe I never will. But I thought that I would share with you a transcript that I received a few moments ago. This was his mic was open, and it was a transcript that I received of him going after Jordan Peterson backstage. So let me read it for you. The principality of the technocratic other is a social reformation of the transposed divergence of the praxis of the machinery of whiteness. For the white man is nothing more than the crux of the credence of self when juxtaposed against the freeing and liberating him, Africa, my black brothers. The white man is weak and an ephemeral bleep in the universality of diversity. Whiteness is the diabolical exorcism of the synthetic, whereas my brothers, blackness is beautiful, blackness is love, blackness is emancipatory. My brothers and sisters, this is why I humbly submit to you that the grand wizard, Jordan Whitey Peterson, is a non-arboreal, multicellular agent of hate. He espouses a dystopic hyper-reality where Whitey rules via a catharsis of selfishness. Understand me, my brothers. I'm here to build bridges. One bridge to liberation for people of color and a bridge to hell for mean Whitey Peterson. The commodification of redemption is African, my brothers. Whitey Peterson is an angry white man. I'm glad that we caught him saying those things on the open mic. Love you, Dyson. You're a real connector of people. Cheers, everybody.
All right, we're live. Let me just see if a little music until. Can I get closer?
Well, come on. Can you come up? All right, here you go. There.
There we go. Is there any songs you want to hear?
I can't think of any at the moment. Well, play the Rainbow Connection.
I don't remember that. It goes.
I think it's an. Yeah. And then E. Other side.
Something like that. All right. Well, we're doing another live stream today because my mom is leaving tomorrow. Hang on, is this even going yet? Oh, it's going. Sweet. I usually don't do a Sunday live stream because it's a day of rest. But when my mom's around, you gotta lock her in. Gotta tell the stories. Gotta keep the dream alive. There we go. So last night I wrote to Patreon. By the way, here's a link if anybody wants to join. Patreon.com/WDTL. And thank you all, by the way, for subscribing to my website, hugepianist.com/subscribe. A bunch of those came in the last 2 days, and it was awesome. And I felt very grateful to you all. And Patreon's still rocking and rolling. They've threatened to kick me off, but they've really quieted down. And all right, so what did I asked the Patreons what to ask my mom. And this is what we got so far. Is that a nice picture of us?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, let me show them this. There's a picture of my mom and me and Walter yesterday that Amy took. Wasn't that a nice breakfast? Or what was it? No, dinner.
It was
dinner. My mom treated us yesterday. We've been letting her treat us to a lot of these meals. Look at that. Look at those two. She's a little over 6 feet tall. That's why.
Well, now I'm about a half an inch under.
You're half inch under 6 feet?
Yes, that's what they measured me at Dr.
You
Rob's
shrank?
office. I don't, maybe it was the time of day.
How long did you go?
Never over 6 feet.
How long did you go without going to the hospital?
Oh, gosh. years.
It's a hilarious stat.
Well, I wish I could remember. 20 years.
20 years. Oh, Haven, great dude.
Going
Oh, by
to
the way,
hospital.
this guy, yeah.
Not since you were born, and then I had the AFib incident.
So you didn't go for 37 years.
Right.
So you can go to the hospital for 37 years.
I had to. I'm trying to remember the last time I went to it. Oh, the last time I went to the doctor was 6 years.
How often in your life have you taken antibiotics?
Oh gosh, Jason, I'm
My
not
name's
good
Owen.
at this.
My name's
Owen.
You may need to start going to the doctor. That picture right there is the one up there drawn.
Yes.
This guy drew that.
Oh.
So his question is,
Oh.
you have 60 seconds to give advice to a 19-year-old girl. What do you say? Same for a 19-year-old boy. What advice do you give a 19-year-old?
19-year-old girl. Oh, it's going to be so cliché, but just stay true to who you think you are. I spent a lot of years in isolation because I knew, for some reason, I knew who I was early on, and I was not part of what society was trying to tell me who I was. Now this is going to take more than 60 seconds.
No, that's the point. That's why I want questions beforehand so that you can really go for it.
When I came from a very small town in southwestern Wisconsin, Benton. There were 24 of us in our high school graduating class, 12 girls and 12 boys. By the end of the first year that we were out, 11 of those girls had babies. Guess who was the one who didn't? And so but I got used to being odd. And that was one of the, what's the word? Well, examples, but of there I was, the only one who didn't have a baby at 19. The boys, well, I'm trying to think. None of them were the father of those babies.
Hey, buddy. Were they all married, though?
Are you kidding?
They
No.
weren't married?
In fact,
You know
maybe two were?
One of the biggest predictors of future, the three biggest things, Larry Elder was saying this, that if you don't want to be poor in America, wait till you're married to have children and finish high school, and the odds that you'll be poor are like under 5%. That those are the factors. Oh.
And boys, she wanted to know about the boys.
Oh no, he wanted to know, boy, yeah. What advice do you give your 19-year-old boy?
The same thing. You're gonna, especially my brother. I watched him get into all kinds of trouble, and you and Jason, weren't exactly sitting home. Anyway, you've got to have a sense of what your core is. You've just got to, or else you're going to be pulled out into the tornado.
Yeah, that's how you don't get pulled everywhere.
But you're going to be alone, and you're going to feel isolated.
Oh, where's my diary?
Oh, what happened to the box?
I'm not sure.
It's in the box. Amy had to put it away because of
Do you want to grab it?
Well, yeah.
Let me come back, because it fits. You want to hear words right from my mouth? It's my mom brought a bunch of and I'll do
She has an experiment called the blue and brown eye experiment. I encourage you all just to simply watch that because it'll actually grow you. Now back to stuff that'll make you laugh. If white people are just now discovering that it's bad for black or working class people in America, they're a lot more blind than I thought. And they're a lot more choosing to be ignorant than I thought. The same problems that we're discussing today, we discussed in 1990, 1980, 1970, and 1960. And until we call a spade and we say that this problem is coming from conditions that we're creating or allowing to happen as a white group of people who hold a certain amount of power.
Do you think that there's a systemic attempt in the United States to isolate poor and minorities, to put them in communities that can be controlled?
It's not an attempt at all. It's successful. If you look at Daley and the highways in Chicago, he built the highways to segregate people. You know, it's just no roundabout way to do it. Absolutely.
So again, speaking for all white people, what can we do to bridge the gap between the communities of color? Should you own barbershops? Should white people start getting their hair cut at black barbershops?
I hope so.
Because there are conversations going on there.
Yeah.
No, there are conversations going on at those barbershops that we're not part of.
And white people pay $50 for haircuts. So absolutely. I would like that. I would like that. I speak at colleges often, and when I speak at black colleges and I speak at white colleges, it's a slightly different message. The message that I preach to white kids that are in Tallahassee, that are in Atlanta, Georgia Tech, that are in places like New York, is get outside the college environment, find a child who is marginal or doing exceptional in school, who's a minority, who doesn't look like you, not of the same religion, not of the same background. Help that child matriculate into college. Help them by being a big brother or big sister. Help them by mentoring them. Don't give them gifts. Don't make yourself feel good like, hey, I gave them a new pair of sneakers. Teach them the path you were taught to help them become a successful human being. What you're going to get out of that experience is another human being that's taking full advantage of an educational system that can help them in their community. But more than that, it grows you as a human being to have empathy and apathy for someone who doesn't look like you, is culturally not from your background.
Okay. Speaking of culturally, we've only got a minute here, but speaking of people not culturally from your background, you're feeling the burn. You like Bernie Sanders, okay? What is it? Just as quickly as you can, tell me why you believe Bernie's the man.
Dr. King, in his last 2 years of life, talked about a poor people's campaign, organizing unions on the behalf of poor workers, organizing against a war machine that was perpetuating violence in Vietnam. Bernie Sanders is the only politician who has consistently, for 50 years, taken that social justice platform into politics. And right now, we have an opportunity to elect someone who is directly out of the philosophy of Kingian nonviolence. We can directly elect someone that cares about poor people, cares about women, gay, black rights, cares about lives that don't look like his. And this opportunity in history is not going to come in another 20 years, not going to come in another 2 years. So if we do not take this opportunity right now, we're going to be sitting around a campfire mad because they've nuked the world to hell, I'm afraid, you know?
Well, I hope that doesn't happen, and I hope you'll come back. Killer Mike,
thank you so much for having me.
Killer Mike, stay right there. Killer Mike, everybody. Run the jewels, among other things. Barbershops. We'll be right back.
All right, guys, we're live on the YouTube, and joining me today is a YouTuber who has done pretty much the scariest thing that one person can do. She has come out as conservative, the scariest of all words. Candace Owens, AKA Red Pill Black. Welcome to the Rubin Report.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here right now.
I am very happy
excited
to have you here. Should I be calling you Candace or Red Pill Black? How are we going to do this?
I guess people are calling me Red Pill Black, so either or. You can call me Candace.
Yeah. You said you were just walking down the street. Someone, there's Red Pill Black.
Yeah, there's Red Pill Black. And I'm like, I'm Candace. But I'm glad it's catching. I like Red Pill Black, so.
So before you were a YouTuber, which you're actually pretty new to, you went by Candace in
I
the
went
real
by Candace, yeah.
All right. Well, I feel like we're going to be on the level, so I'm going to go with Candace while we're sitting here. So you have a crazy story, an interesting evolution. You suddenly caught fire, and you're doing pieces all over the place. You were on the Daily Wire this morning. I saw you on Jesse Waters. Was it this past weekend, right?
Correct.
Just a couple days ago. Saw a clip of that. You're bouncing around. You're making moves. Who is this Candace person? All right. Let's just do some history for the people that don't know about you at all.
I'm just a girl that makes videos. The history is I grew up in Stamford, Connecticut. I went to school at the University of Rhode Island, pursued a degree in journalism, which is quite ironic.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Someone that studied journalism that's trying to tell the truth? This is fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. After college, I was in a lot of student loan debt. You know, I came from a family that doesn't have any money whatsoever, and I had to just pay it back. So the smartest move for me was to go into finance. I hit the ground running in New York City, worked at a private equity firm for 4 years, left that firm and wanted to do my own anti-bullying startup thing that went really sideways when the left tried to do hit pieces on me during the election, and that was my red pill moment.
Really? So
Yeah.
wait, how did doing an anti-bullying thing get you caught up in the left?
So I don't know if many people that watch this show are familiar with the Gamergate scandal. I certainly wasn't.
I think most of my audience is familiar-ish, but like nobody fully gets it, I think. But feel free to take us down that road for a little bit.
Yeah, so long story short, that whole scandal is built on a girl named Zoe Quinn who says that she was attacked by anonymous white men on the internet. And people were saying that that wasn't true, and she said that it was. And
if they were anonymous, how did she know their skin color?
I don't know. If you read the pieces in the media, it's fascinating, you know?
Yeah.
So I was doing an anti-bullying startup that I was really passionate about, and I got a phone call from her, and I put up basically a 3-minute video on Kickstarter teasing what we were going to do. And I said this one sentence, which was a figure of speech that I think set the alarms off. I said, what we're doing is figuratively lifting the masks up off of trolls. At the time, she was working at Twitter. She was working for Twitter for something called Crash Override Network, and I immediately received an inbox from her on Twitter saying she'd like to talk to me about and try to convince me that the project that I'm doing is bad, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
So she calls me up, and I have no idea who she is. I don't know what Gamergate is. I don't know what doxing means. And she says, you have to pull your project because people actually don't want to find out who harassed them. She said, I'm a victim, but I never want to know who harassed me on the internet. Like, she was basically arguing a point that didn't make sense. If she was actually harassed on the internet, then obviously my technology would be a godsend, because they never figured out who harassed her. And I said, you know, I appreciate the phone call. This isn't really making sense to me.
Yeah.
You know?
It sounds literally the reverse of what you'd think she would have called you to say.
Absolutely. Like, she should have been on board with what I was doing. So totally appreciate the phone call, but I'm not going to pull my Kickstarter. And she started crying. And she said, if you don't, it's going to ruin everything. And she told me that she spends time on 4chan because of what she does, and she saw that people were already talking about my project, and if I didn't pull it, these anonymous white men and Trump supporters, you have to remember this was during the election cycle, were going to come after me and dox my family, which essentially means put up their personal information so people can try to kill them. That's what she says.
So she said this is what they are going to do. So she was oddly threatening you with being doxxed, but it wasn't she that was going to dox you.
She thought I was a total moron, I think, you know, and I'm like, okay, I'm not pulling my project. She hangs up the phone crying. Within 2 hours, we were absolutely inundated. About 4,000 emails via Kickstarter, like, you know, nigger, 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 die, 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 you know, pull your project. And they have these super obvious screen names like, you know, Trump or die, you know, Trump 2020, white man behind computer.
That's a good one. That guy's always
So, and I'm like, is she kidding? All men, by the way. Everyone was like, you know, Dave at, you know, Bob at, no woman. And magically, everything that she tried to warn me about came true within a couple of hours of me refusing to pull my project. So I tweet very quickly, again, not really knowing the bread and butter